Ayurveda.
Namaskaram, Sadhguru. It's an absolute honor to have you today. Bounce Back Bharat E-Conclave, the Ayurveda edition, a platform that we've created for the National Ayurveda Day. Today is National Ayurveda Day, and I want to start our conversation with a question that I've always wondered, Sadhguru. Allopathy and Ayurveda are two powerful medicinal systems. Does it make sense for both these systems to work hand in glove? Is it possible that the Vaidya and the doctor, they work together in partnership to create well-being for the humanity? Your views, Sadhguru?
I wouldn't say they should work hand in glove, but they should definitely work hand in hand. For sure. Well, unfortunately, people are getting seriously committed to one system or the other. A person who is sick, he doesn't care what is your system, he just wants to get well. He just wants to be healthy and back on his feet. So, which is the best system? That is not the point. What is most appropriate in a given situation for a given person, because this standardization of everybody's physiological process has won. We may all be human beings, but still we have unique type of bodies. Not considering that and treating all of them as one shot is a very rudimentary way of handling things. Having said that, I think it's best that we identify ailments as two different kinds. One is infectious diseases, another are chronic diseases. Essentially what this means is, when we say chronic ailments, we are talking about ailments that are manufactured in our body for whatever reasons. Infectious means it's an invasion from outside.
Yeah.
If it's an infectious ailment or infectious disease, there is no question that allopathy has proved itself to be the best. Because when an invasion happens, we have found a way of doing chemical warfare with the invader and destroy them. Well, in the process of destroying, we also cause some damage to our system, but it is better to damage yourself than be dead. Right now, this whole debate is going on, are you vax or anti-vax? You know, it's a big… it's almost becoming like a religion. If you say you vaccinate, anti-vax people won't anymore talk to you, they knock you off their social media.
You're cancelled.
Yes, all this is happening, it's become like two different religions. So essentially, whatever kind of chemicals we put into the system, whatever kind of aggressive treatments we do to the system, there is a certain amount of damage and loss in the system. But definitely it's a better option than being dead. So in that sense, when you have infections, and the level of infection that you're seeing in the world today is because of urbanization and concentrated levels of population. If population was sparse and spread out, you really need not have to bother about infections because it wouldn't spread the way it is spreading. For example, right now this COVID is spreading the way it's spreading, mainly because of air travel. Otherwise, why would a virus that originated in China be all over the world? It would not happen if there was no air travel. How many human beings would travel to India to give the virus? But now every day millions of human beings are traveling all over the place. So, from once it goes to one place, there's no controlling it, it just goes everywhere in no time. Probably never before any infection could spread as quickly as it spreads today, simply because our transportation systems have become so rapid and such mass traveling. Never before this many men and women ever traveled in the history of humanity. So having said that, infections are there is no two ways about it. The world, the way we have structured it, infections are bound to be there. So the relevance of allopathy is supreme. You cannot just brush it aside and say all kinds of things. But when it comes to chronic ailments that ailments that we somehow knowingly or unknowingly manufactured within our system, alternative systems, instead of calling them alternative systems, because that means we are saying allopathy is the main system. No, these other ancient systems which have been there in the world, in terms of Ayurveda, Siddha Vaidya, Unani, the Bach flower medicine, the Chinese medicine, there are many of them. All these things have relevance. I feel a time has come where it is important that all health professionals should focus on human health rather than being committed to one system or the other. I know the approaches are so different from each other that we think they cannot merge. There is no such thing. If we start calling health professionals, that is a good word, but right now we call them… when you go and do a program, when you do a course, it is called as medicine, you learn about medicine. That means essentially you learn about how to treat people, you're not talking about how to generate health in the world. So, health can only happen from within. But defense can happen in so many different ways for external invasions. So these two distinctions if we make and approach health as the main focus, not as this system or that system, as I said, I repeat myself, one who is unwell or sick doesn't care what is the system. If you got some mantra or magic or something, if his ailment can go away, he's happy, he doesn't care whether it's science or mumbo-jumbo. As long as it goes away, that's all that matters to a sick man. So I wish it is possible that in the next 10 to 25 years, if we really strive for this, medical education can be far more integrated than the way it is right now, which is very narrow way of approaching human health.
Fantastic. Beautiful. Sadhguru, that brings me to a question that one of our listeners asked. Anita from Thrissur, Kerala wants to ask you this question, that what is the significance of fasting and is intermittent fasting a legitimate way of fasting?
I didn't know there were illegitimate ways of fasting. Lot of people are fasting between two meals. They're calling that intermittent. Yes. Between breakfast and lunch and dinner, they're on fast. Otherwise, maybe they were in a constant mode of eating. I don't know about that. But anyway, what is fasting? Fasting essentially means to give a break to the system. Because the level of digestive process that's happening within the system is such that when the digestive process is on, other systems, including your brain power, comes down a little bit. When the stomach is full, you become a little dull, little sleepy, all these things, and above all, one most important thing is the excretory system does not function as well as it would otherwise when the stomach is empty. When I say excretion, I'm not talking about digestion, alimentary canal and excretion, not on that level alone, but on the cellular level there is excretion. The cells are constantly trying to get rid of its impurities and put in more oxygen and more blood flow to happen within them, all this. So this process will be affected when the digestion is on or there is food in the stomach. So in the yogic system, always the minimum gap between one meal and the next meal should be 8 hours. If 8 hours is not possible for you, I would say for most human beings, 5 to 6 hours is a must. Otherwise, you are inviting something bad to happen to you in terms of your physical health for sure. So, this 8 hours gap is something we always maintain. As you know, in the yoga center, we eat at 10 in the morning and 7 in the evening. So the next meal is only 10 o'clock in the next morning. So naturally, it is about 13–14 hours have passed before you have the next meal. And in between there is a lot of physical activity, sadhana, variety of processes. So there are days when the morning meal is skipped and only the evening meal happens. For me personally, largely, when my schedule is reasonably in control, I eat only one meal a day. And it's more than enough. And normally I eat between 4 to 6 in the evening and that's about it. So do I call this fasting? No, I call this sensible eating. I think I have managed from the age of 19, and now I'm 64. I am the same weight from 19 to 64. It's just that at that time, there was a lot of muscle on the shoulder, but because of constant gravitational activity, it has kind of come down a little bit. It's gravity,
It's gravity
believe
at
me.
work.
And too much of sedentary activity. In a day, I'm sitting 12 to 14 hours a day some days, simply sitting meetings and like this, interviews and stuff like this. So, too much of sitting, not enough physical activity. It has done that, but still I maintain the same weight as I was 19 years of age. So, if you just take care of this, that you know for your height what is the weight and your muscle tone how it should be, if you manage this, how much you should eat, you decide. It is not something there has to be a prescription for everything. It is not that you must decide, I'm going to fast and this and that. It is just that sensible eating. You don't eat whenever food comes in front of you, you don't do compulsive eating. You eat when you feel the body needs to eat for its energy and its maintenance of the system. So, what is being referred to as an intermittent system, intermittent fasting right now is, it is just that somebody has to get millions of dollars of grant to decide what is happening. There is substantial evidence. Well, this intermittent fasting became a popular term because a Japanese researcher came up with this as to what's happening in the physiology. Well, we've been talking about this forever. For thousands of years in yogic systems, we've always known what is the significance of, denying yourself, or what is the significance of not eating compulsively. That you only fill the gas in your tank. If you have a car or a motorcycle or whatever you drive or ride, you only go to the gas station when you need to fill the tank. When it is full, you don't fill it. That is for your automobile. But when you're full, you eat a dessert. So, because you have an expandable bladder tank, In aviation, there is something called as a bladder tank. You can add a bladder tank for as an auxiliary fuel tank. So, because human beings have a bladder tank, they can go on filling it, and as they fill it more and more, the tank capacity will increase and it will be visible.
Amazing.
So,
Amazing.
there is, in 48-day cycle of what is happening in the system, approximately for about 3 days, for most human beings, there will be no need to eat. If you are very conscious of how your system functions, you will identify those days and not eat on those days. But if you do not have such awareness, that is why this 11th day of the month, this Ekadasi is fixed. On that day, you have only one meal. That means in 24 hours, you eat only once. Something simple like that could fix it up, and this is something traditionally always followed in India. If you do not have the necessary awareness to figure out what is that day when you don't need food, you just follow the 11th day of the month, where it has something to do with the lunar cycles and what happens in the system.
Fantastic. Preksha from Jalgaon says, Sadhguru, that today the food that we eat is laden with fertilizers. She tries to eat organic, but it's costly, sometimes it's not available. So her question to you is there an Ayurveda hack to minimize this damage that fertilizers are causing?
Well, she tries to eat organic, but let me remind her that all food is organic. How much have we poisoned it is the only question. So, are we eating contaminated food or are we eating food? So, is there some food which is not organic? Well, you are also organic, okay? You can't eat inorganic food and digest it, there's no such thing. So, it is all organic. The question is, how much of poisoning has happened through chemicals and pesticides and weedicides and whatever else. This you cannot completely eliminate in today's world because we have taken to that. There is a whole movement that we are working at as to how to bring back organic content in the soil, because the richness of the soil and the micronutrients in the soil will very much determine what is the quality of food that you eat. Well, unfortunately, today there is so much contamination, but I would say still, compared to Western countries, in India, most of the food is organic, not necessarily by conscious process, simply by default, because the farmer didn't have the money to put the poison in the land. It is organic. So generally, in most parts of the country, still organic. Maybe… where is this Jalgaon? Haryana, is it?
Maharashtra.
Maharashtra. Probably parts of Maharashtra, Punjab and Haryana, maybe the fertilizer and pesticide usage is probably on the higher side compared to other parts of the country. So, to eat little consciously is very much possible. It is possible to choose in such a way. It need not be branded organic. If you buy from small farmers, if that is possible, or there are ways to take… if there are pesticides, there are ways to remove it, because we must understand, in vegetables, pesticides are usually sprayed at the flowering time. So that pesticide will not necessarily manifest in the vegetable itself. Usually one vegetable that carries too much of pesticide could be in most places. If it is grown in the plains, if it's grown in the hills, it may not have much, but if it's grown in the plains, cabbage and cauliflower are two which may contain a lot of pesticide, because for every layer you have to spray, otherwise it will be eaten up by worms and stuff. So the next thing they will do is genetically engineer it, which is even worse, because the consequences of that, nobody can predict how it will go. So, the simple way to remove pesticides is, you must take pure water. When I say pure water, now in the cities you are getting chlorinated water. Chlorine is poison, all right? You're putting it in the water only because certain bacteria and other things should die. But what we need to understand is, the design factor of all life on this planet is fundamentally same. Whether you take a single-celled amoeba or a bacteria or a microbe or whatever, and how you are made, we are all carbon life, and essentially the fundamental design is same. Sophistication and complexity may be different. So what kills a bacteria also poisons you. Maybe the dosage that you put for a bacteria will not kill you, but do not ever think it doesn't poison you. Every day drinking water which is poisoned with chlorine is not a good idea. Somehow we have this, that I can poison you, but it will not poison me. This is a… I don't know, somehow our genius works like this that we can poison the water, we can poison the food, only insects will die, worms will die, we will not die. There is no such thing. We will also get poisoned, just the dosage is not enough, they are dying immediately, we are doing slow poisoning to ourselves. So one simple way to wash away, if there is poison, if there is pesticides, upon the vegetable, which is only a few vegetables, because for most of them the spray happens during flowering time, the simple thing to do is to take pure water, that is non-chlorinated water, put certain amount of turmeric and a bit of salt in it, or maybe a little bit of baking soda, and keep it like that for some time, just wash it with that. Otherwise, you can put some neem leaves in the water, leave it overnight, and with that water you can wash. This way you can remove most of the pesticides, I would say. Fertilizers are deep inside, it's just that maybe you will have to put less salt in your food. I'm joking because they're putting so much salt into the earth, maybe you don't have to put salt in your food.
Right. Sadhguru, when we conceptualized this Ayurveda conclave, the idea and the thought was that how do you make Ayurveda cool? Because generally Ayurveda is looked down upon by youngsters. A lot of the practices…
No, for an Ayurvedic person, if you say cool, he will say you are in Shita.
That's right. So how do we make our traditional medicinal systems cool? Like you mentioned about intermittent fasting. Now that's a cool thing, but it is something that we always had. So how do we get this right?
Well, intermittent fasting came from the east coast of United States. Now, if you come here right now, I'm here in Los Angeles, and here Ayurveda is real cool. So it will bounce back. When it bounces back, suddenly it'll be cool in India also.
Wow, fantastic.
It's unfortunate, it's not fantastic. It's
I know.
unfortunate that everything has to be a rebound from America, otherwise it's
Yeah.
not cool.
That's right, Sadhguru. That's how we are. But I'm glad that voices like you are making spirituality and our traditional systems cool. The work that you're doing is significant, and we all are in love with that. Sadhguru, one last question before we sign out. Sonia from Jodhpur says that ghee has always been an integral part of our food traditionally, but given our sedentary way of living, does it make sense to continue with it in our food plan, or should we drop it?
No, ghee has many useful things. She comes from Jodhpur, which are actually desert lands. In a place like that, ghee is very, very important because if there is… ghee has this capability. Normally, we must understand this. Today, we are mixing it with so many things, ghee and sugar, ghee and carbs and everything. Otherwise, generally, traditionally, ghee was always eaten as the first mouthful. The idea is, she comes from Jodhpur and if she's eating dal bati,
Yeah.
well, it's soaked in ghee. There is no way you're going to eat this dal bati without ghee. It has to be soaked in ghee because the roughage of the cereal is such, without ghee, it's very hard for the thing to go through. And the idea of eating the first morsel with ghee is a lubricant which lubricates the entire alimentary canal. That should be the first thing you consume so that it facilitates a certain easy passage of food. And also there is a factor in India, in many ways, chili is the spirit of India, okay?
Yeah.
So, especially in Rajasthan, chili is, because even if a camel eats, it must be tasty. So it is really, really heavy on chili. When you eat very spicy food, it's very good to coat your tract with ghee before you consume that. In Andhra Pradesh, in Rajasthan, in various other places, wherever there is very hot, spicy food, eating ghee has been a part of Indian tradition. Leaving that aside, the importance of ghee is it keeps the alimentary canal clean. See, one important aspect of being physiologically and psychologically healthy is you must have a clean colon. If you go to an Ayurvedic doctor or a Siddha Vaidya, if you have any kind of problem, even if you say you're mentally disturbed, first thing that they do to you is you have sleepless nights, first thing they do to you is to purge you. Because a clean colon is vital for all these things. So one who consumes ghee in a proper manner, that person's colon will always be clean because nothing sticks there, nothing stays there for long periods of time. Today, colon cancer, intestinal cancer are becoming so big. I would say it is not that you can prevent this absolutely, but the incidence would be much lower if there is a certain amount of consumption of ghee. And the ghee must be of the right quality. I don't know what commercial ghees that people are eating today, but if it is properly made from cow's milk or even buffalo's milk, if the ghee is made, it has many important benefits. One particular benefit is that this is because you are saying it's an Ayurvedic conference, I think I can take the liberty of saying this. It enhances the aura within the system. The cellular aura will go up and you will have a higher sense of aliveness in the system, which becomes visible in the way you are to people. It's not just by eating ghee. At the same time, if you eat ghee and carbohydrates together, if you ghee and sugar together, then it adds as fat. But if you eat just ghee or just with a small morsel of food that you eat ghee in the beginning, then it works more as a lubricant. Body's ability to digest ghee is very low. when ghee goes in by itself. But when it is mixed with something else and goes, it tends to add fat. So in terms of sedentary life the question had, the sedentary life issue, that is relevant only when you're mixing it with sugar and carb. Otherwise, ghee does not make you fatten up in any way. It works more as a lubricant in the alimentary canal.
Great, Sadhguru. That brings me to the last question, Sadhguru. National Ayurveda Day. Millions and millions of people are tuned into this video and the audio broadcast. What would be your parting message to all our listeners and viewers?
See, Ayurveda means the science of life. We're talking about Ayur means the span of life also. Essentially, staying healthy, not falling dead, essentially means postponing death. Yes, it is. Yeah. So that life happens vibrantly enough. Within this system, old cells are dying, new cells are being born all the time. Both life and death are in play. To keep the life process stronger than the process of death. This is what Ayurveda is about. For this, essentially we can say in modern language, it is a way of rejuvenating the system towards battling the process of death. This must be clearly understood because I'm saying without any context. We need to understand life and death are not two different things. Today, as I'm sitting here, I can say I'm living, or I can say I'm dying. I'm right now dying, one day the process will be complete. We would like the process to take its time, but one day it will definitely become complete. So this is life and death at the same time. In that sense, Ayurveda means a system and a science to enhance the life process so that death is kept at bay as far as possible. Kicking the can, that's all. Nobody can really skip the death. There's no such thing. So when it comes to Ayurveda, how to achieve this? See, we are an integration of many things. The food that we eat is a complex assembly of various things in the world. Essentially, it is the soil. It's extremely important we understand, if you want to do Ayurveda properly, the most important thing is a rich soil. Unfortunately, that's missing today. Especially in India, right now, people are saying nearly 60 to 62% of India's soil has organic content which is less than 0.5%. So we are working towards how to enhance the organic content of the soil, because the health of the soil and the health of who we are not different. What you call as soil is the life of life. The source of life is soil in many ways. Whether you're a grasshopper or a human being or an elephant, still you're from the soil, it's not different. So everything that comes from soil is capable of helping you towards enhancing life. So in Ayurveda we say that every leaf, every root, every bark, everything that's found on the planet has medicinal value. Only a few things we have learned to use, because everything is of the same structure. Fundamentally, the design of life, whether it's an amoeba or a plant or an animal or whatever, the fundamental life process is same. Between plant life and animal life, there is a significant difference, and plant life is more useful to us for medicinal value than animal life. Animal life has a different kind of structure where very similar to our own. So anything that is further away from us genetically always works as medicine and health generating. So this is the reason why generally in this country, probably even today, India has the maximum number of vegetarian people. And even those who claim to be non-vegetarian, they can't eat a slab of meat as it is being eaten elsewhere. They are only eating meat as a side dish for a little bit of extra nourishment, that's about it. Very few people in India can ever eat a full slab of meat as it is eaten in Western countries. So, this understanding has come from a deep-rooted perception that if you want to be healthy, you must eat that kind of genetic structure, that kind of cellular structure, which is furthest away from your own structure. So plant life is furthest away. If you have to eat animals, the first and the best thing to eat is waterborne creatures. Anything that is a mammal has a significant impact on who you are. and your health and well-being. Today, Western scientists are coming to this, nearly 55% of the coronary heart diseases and deaths have happened mainly because of meat consumption.
Great. Sadhguru, thank you. You took out time for this conference and we had such an insightful conversation. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
Stay healthy and well.
Thank you, Sadhguru. Thank you so much.